Hi everyone, it's Ross here. So in around 2019, probably, I think about the start of 2019, I was approached by Roche to be interviewed about living with spinal muscular atrophy, about my experiences, about my thoughts on the future, about potential treatments, about my job, about everything. I, upon starting Risdiplam, reached out to them and said, is there any chance I could have that video footage? And they kindly sent me about an hour's worth of their filming that they did in my home and around where I live. And I have edited that video into a series of mini living with SMA insights. One of them is about sort of general SMA, one is about working, and another one is about driving. These videos are by no way affiliated with Roche or spinal muscular atrophy or anyone. I've just done them off my own back because I feel there's some useful insight for parents of younger children with SMA, for people who have had later onset of SMA, or for people who are just generally maybe living with SMA and not maybe having such a positive outlook on life at times. So this first video is about 20 minutes long. So before you settle in, you might want to go and make a cup of tea. You might want to get a pillow because it might bore you to tears. But anyway, it'd be great if you could watch it, like it, feedback, share, tell me if it's rubbish, tell me if it's good. And yeah, I hope you enjoy watching. Thanks very much. My experience with living with SMA has actually been pretty positive. I think when you're born with a disability and it's all you've ever known, you have a completely different outlook on it to somebody who may have an accident or develop a disability later in life. So I've been to mainstream school, I went to university, I've got a job. It doesn't mean, however, that there hasn't been lots of challenges and barriers on the way to overcome, and at times there's been setbacks and at times there's been frustrations. But overall, apart from not being able to do a lot of things myself, my quality of life compared to some people is actually pretty good. Living with SMA every day does mean that life is challenging. So for example, even just getting up to get to work, it takes me 90 minutes to have a shower, get dressed, and my able-bodied friends can probably do that in 20-25 minutes. So for example, when I have to be at work for a really early meeting, that often means getting up at like 5:30 in the morning, and my friends probably rock out of bed at about 7 o'clock. Things like traveling places needs planning. Everything takes longer. You always have to have somebody with you. So those things do present challenges, but they're all challenges that can be overcome with a bit of planning and taking ownership of the disability, and rather than expecting other people to do things for you. It's just, in a way, it's a bit like having a permanent PA with you and having things that you just need to factor in, but nothing's really impossible. If you want to do something, you just need to put the effort in. So if you want to go on a holiday, it just takes a little bit more planning. If you want to go for a day out, where can I park? Is it accessible? Are we driving? Where's the nearest toilet? Will the restaurant be accessible? All those kind of things. But yeah, within reason, I don't really ever find that the challenges that I face can't be overcome. The small things I'm proud of in my life are that I haven't really actively knowingly let my disability hold me back. So I've got a degree, I got a job on a graduate scheme, I've travelled to lots of places all over the world and done things that I've always wanted to do. So like, for example, last season, one of my ambitions was to go and watch Liverpool, my football team, in the Champions League final. And I went to the Ukraine for 36 hours, which was amazing. So I'm really proud that I follow my football team all around the country. I'm really proud of small things like having a job, having a mortgage, not being dependent on other people, having a good circle of friends, having a reasonably decent education. I'm really into gadgets. I drive, which is really important to me. And I'm a little bit of a dedicated follower of fashion. So those, I guess, are all the small things that are important to me. Having SMA has definitely affected my choices in life. So when I was 18 and I wanted to go to uni, I wasn't in a position where I was trusting of other people performing my personal care. So I had to go to a local university where I could commute backwards and forward from home. Whilst it probably saved my bank balance, I'd probably missed out on some of the partying and 24-hour benders and things that other people without disabilities do. I think also in my career, it's taken me a longer time to get to the level that I'm at now because I haven't been able to do things like easily relocate. And whilst I've said, there aren't challenges that can't be overcome, there are adjustments that need to be made. So lots of back-to-back days of attending meetings puts a lot of pressure and fatigue on me. So maybe at times that impacts my potential and ability at work. I've also had to always, I guess, think about the jobs that are with a bigger organisation where I've got more support. So at times, working for a big organisation means that there are a lot of responsibilities and commitments. And whilst there's lots of adjustments they do, and they support me really well, it's not that I can just suddenly leave and go and work somewhere else because I'm not sure I'd be supported in the same way by a small organisation. Not in a weird way, but my favourite part of the day is probably having a shower. So being disabled, it's quite clearly when you've got a visible disability, you can't hide away from it so people can see it. And being clean and presentable is really important to me, and I will not leave the house without having a shower. The thought of it just makes me... So my favourite part of the day is a good shower and feeling set to take on whatever the day throws at me. So living with SMA means that actually life works better with routine. So a care routine is part of my everyday functioning. So a typical day, if it's a work day, for example, would involve getting up at around about 6 o'clock, having a shower, getting dressed. That takes me to about 7:30, including that is a bit of stretching and physio. Then having some breakfast and then leaving for work and getting to the train station with my support worker supporting me through all of those activities. Getting to work, getting set up at work, going to the toilet. My support worker takes me to the toilet, grabbing some lunch and drinks at work. So having help with being fed in meetings or at my desk, occasionally in the restaurant at a lunch break. And then obviously doing a day's work, coming home, potentially needing the toilet, so having to get completely undressed, hoisted onto the toilet, then getting dressed again into some kind of comfy clothes I'm just staying in, having help with dinner, maybe a little bit of downtime around the admin of running your own sort of like care function, which involves things like, tracking hours, making sure that benefits are claimed, etc. And then sort of going towards bed in the evening, every night, a series of stretching, getting comfortable in bed, being turned during the night. That's a typical day of my care routine. Nothing too invasive, but all dependent on other people supporting me. Current treatments that I'm receiving. So I receive a once a year check from a neurologist at my local hospital, and I also have, she has a support nurse who I can ring if I need to. So they don't provide ongoing treatment, they provide, I guess, overseeing interest in my well-being and care and my condition. Off my own back, I try and swim 3 times a week with my carers at a local swimming pool that's accessible. I have a personal trainer that I employ once a week to come and do sort of an hour's worth of stretching and basic movement and weights that I can manage to do. I do also currently have kidney stones as a result, linked to probably my SMA. So one of the treatments for that is drinking 2 litres of pure lemon water every day. I have high blood pressure, so I have to take blood pressure tablets. Other treatments and conditions, I regularly go to another local hospital every 6 months to have my breathing checked, and do breathing tests. I'm currently not having to use NIPI or CPAP or anything like that, but they said that the reason I'm not is because of the exercise I do. And I guess, again, not a treatment, but I have to really focus on what I eat. So I'd love to probably eat burgers and chips all the time, but I can't. So I have to try and manage my weight as best as possible and try and not put on too much weight and maintain a reasonable weight, although I could be probably a stone lighter than I am now. For SMA, the healthcare team available to me is a doctor at Addenbrooke's Hospital, Dr. Briley, and her, I think she's called like a family care officer called Carol. And then I also see a Dr. Davies at Papworth Hospital for my breathing. Other than that, though, I don't see any particular, I guess, specialist, although I have a regular chap that looks at my wheelchair from Permobil, and my carers undertake physio and general day-to-day management of my care with me. With SMA, one of the really frustrating things, I often say this to the neurology team, is that it's suddenly like you're less important as an adult. They don't give you as much time. So, 6 monthly checkups go to like sporadic checkups. It's almost down to you to keep in the system. And as I often say, surely adults with SMA who've lived through all this stuff could offer great advice to parents and families of people who are just entering this journey. And actually, surely it would be good to try things on us as well later in life to see what impact that has. So yeah, the amount of contact reduces. You don't get physiotherapy, so it's kind of directed to you to apply yourself through your carers. You can get, like, I have a once a year checkup, but I really have to fight to keep that appointment. And every time I go, she says, "Are you sure you want to come back in a year?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do want to come back, because you can give me like an MOT and see roughly whether things have changed from year to year." The other frustrating thing is, as you get older, you're farmed out to local hospitals where you're seeing a neurologist who might have an interest in SMA. They're not an expert. And you get like a 7-minute appointment once a year. So you're like, how vested are you in my well-being and my potential of, treatments that might become available? And it's frustrating that you can't go anymore to places like Great Ormond Street or the Hammersmith, where you've got like centres of excellence for your condition.
That's really interesting. Sorry, I'm just reading through them. So is there any support that you would find helpful that's not currently available to you?
So having SMA, one area of support that would be beneficial is more dedicated wheelchair support. So recently, when my condition took quite a strange deterioration and my seating wasn't working for me in my previous wheelchair, to try and find an expert who understands wheelchairs and SMA was really difficult. There is, for example, people with MS, there is a UK specialist sort of wheelchair support function, but it's not yet reached out to people with muscular dystrophy and spinal muscular atrophy. And I think a centre for adults, somewhere where it's a kind of specialist place like Great Ormond Street is for children, like an adult clinic that was in touch with you regularly, keeping you aware of latest updates and treatments that might become available, talking to you about how your life is, sharing best practice amongst people. Those things would be really good. To keep up with SMA information, I guess I use the internet. So Facebook actually is really good, because the amount of groups that are on there about SMA has connected me to lots of adults with SMA. There are lots of different groups around treatments, around sharing best practice of equipment. Twitter, LinkedIn, sometimes there's a few interesting articles, but I guess it's social media, the bit of research on the internet. The other thing is, once you get to know people with SMA of a similar age, obviously you can connect with each other on social media, but you can exchange phone numbers, WhatsApp groups, and just generally pick up the phone and talk to each other about things that you're facing similar challenges with. The sort of information I look for is when my condition has changed for the worse, often seeing whether other people have had the same experience. I guess it's a bit of a a gloomy outlook. Occasionally I look at things like, you know, what's the life expectancy of someone with SMA? Because I think when I was younger, I was told that, you know, there wasn't many adults living, you know, into their 30s and 40s with SMA. But now you can kind of see through this connected world that there are people, you know, in their 60s with SMA. So I look at things like that. And then just occasionally type in, you know, is there a cure for SMA? What treatments are available for SMA? What wheelchair do people with SMA use? Recently, I've been looking at diets and seeing, you know, what kind of things people eat with SMA to manage their weight. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I look for around information relating to SMA. Well, the life quality of life could be improved, obviously, if there was some form of, you know, miracle cure. I think I'm a realist. As an adult with SMA, you know, at 40 with a spinal fusion, I'm never going to be Usain Bolt. But it would be nice maybe if there was some form of drug or treatment that enables me maybe to feed myself, or, you know, go out and have a pint without having to have my support worker in the background or my carer with me. I think those are realistic things. Obviously, if there's stuff that can be done with children to stop their progression happening so quickly, and that you know, they get into maybe really like mid-adulthood before relying on support, that would be obviously great. So with SMA, I think regardless of whether you've got a disability, I think life throws at you good days or bad days. I think, you know, there are very few people who have like this wonderful life of absolutely no problems. But there are bad days. So one of the things that I suffer with from SMA, when I had my spinal fusion when I was 17, they accidentally nicked my bowel, and I had to have a colostomy for a year, and that's left me with a shortened bowel, which means I'm really more susceptible to constipation. So a bad day for me is when that takes over my ability just to go anywhere, because I'm conscious that I really need to go to the toilet, but it's not easy to do that when I'm out and about. So I might take laxatives to kind of force the situation, and then that means I feel really groggy and tired. Other bad days can be sometimes, you know, like when you go to out with your friends and you see them with like wives and children. I don't happen to have that, and they're living a slightly different life. You can get a bit downbeat and frustrated. But then equally, when I have a chat with my friends and they say, "Hey, be careful what you wish for," you know, so there's always a different outlook on things depending on how you look at things. Some days I'm really tired, but that's just, I guess, you know, being employed and having a busy life means that you're going to be tired anyway, and then throwing SMA can make you really tired. But I wouldn't say any day is so bad that it's like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing ever. And I often think, you know, do you know what? I might have SMA, but I've got a roof above my head. I've got food on the table. There are people in this world that are, you know, way worse off. My advice to parents or families of someone who they think at an early stage might have SMA is to obviously go and get, you know, a diagnosis and find out if that is the case. If they're a newly diagnosed family, I would say don't panic. It's not like the end of the world. Like, there's a lot of, you know, things are a lot better now than they were when I was diagnosed like 37 years ago. So, you know, things like wheelchairs are more readily available. The medical experts know more about the condition. You know, social care is better. Equipment in the home to manage your disability is available. One of the things that really frustrates me in this new connected world of social media is where everybody can share an opinion and talk about SMA. Don't ask other people for medical advice. Ask an expert, because experts do know better. But equally, don't wrap someone up in cotton wool because they've got SMA. So I see sometimes on these groups, parents saying, oh, should I let little Charlie go to a party? Of course you should. He's just like anybody else. Let him go to a party. Let him get a bruise. It's not going to be the end of the world. Let him be part of the society. And the more you get out there, the more you do things, the more it makes people more aware. And that's the other thing. You don't want to make people aware of this so that they can, you know, include you in life. If you constantly separate yourself because of your condition, then your quality of life is going to be impacted more by that than your disability. Sorry, I'll start again. I hope the future for SMA for other people is that there are treatments available, especially for those people in early life that can make a massive difference. And I hope for people like myself in adulthood that there's some form of treatment that might make a difference, that might slow down the progression, that might help us regain some motor neuron function. So, we can do things for ourselves, like maybe comb your hair or have a shave, have a beer, eat your dinner yourself without requiring help. I just, for me personally, hope to lead a pretty normal life expectancy and enjoy life. And I think not just SMA, I think the hope for the future of the world is that we think about people with different types of disabilities and how we can design a world that is more inclusive for everybody. That's probably my take on what I hope the future holds for people with SMA. One thing that I often overlook with SMA is the importance that my parents have played in this situation. So if I was to give some advice to parents, is to push your child with SMA to do as much as they can to achieve what their goals and aspirations are. My parents have never treated me as if I have a disability. They've always treated me as if I don't have a disability. So, they've never said, for example, do you know what, just sit at home, we'll fund your life. They've pushed me to go to university, they've pushed me to get a job. So family play a really important role in trying to normalise this disability. Looking after someone with SMA does present challenges of what is the right thing to do, but I just generally think you need to ignore the SMA. The right thing to do is to try and carry on living a normal life, and that that has given me the opportunities. I've never been, only in later life have I actually been more involved in the disabled community, because now it feels like the right time to have that connection with people. But growing up, I didn't want to necessarily be in the disability sphere, because that might have then limited my outlook on life. My outlook might have been around what disabled people's outlook was. I've let my outlook on life be shaped by everybody. So I haven't built my own barriers. As I've got later in life, and my life's different maybe from my non-disabled friends, I've needed to connect more with other people to understand how their life's going, to learn things from them, to share how I've done things, so that can help me at this stage. But I wouldn't have wanted that in my life, because I wanted to do the things that my friends were doing, just maybe in a slightly different way. So like when I was younger and I could walk, because I walked until I was about 15, I used to play football in goal on my knees. My friends were standing up playing football. They still tackled me like they would tackle somebody else. And probably, nowadays someone would be, oh, you can't do that. But yeah, it didn't do any harm. The only harm it did was my dad constantly cleaning my calipers from mud. So, just crack on with it. Yeah, if you were born with SMA, probably in the even just 10 years before me, I know some people with SMA who are bedbound. They don't, just because they were born 10 years earlier. And if you were born even before that, would they even be alive? Would they be living in a care home because that was the only way they were deemed to be able to look after? So for me, I've been born at a lucky time, but I guess in the future it might even be a better time to be born with SMA, because they might be able to have treatments that they can apply, I don't know, maybe even in the womb, let alone like at birth. So it might really make the impact of SMA like minimal. I guess also what would have been really nice for me, which wasn't around when my parents found out that they both carried the gene, was that there wasn't a way of obviously checking if they decided to have more children on whether they would have SMA. So my parents chose not to have. So I've missed out on things like having brothers and sisters, which would have been potentially nice as you get older in life to have a bigger family. But so that again just the advances in things like medical stuff help people make decisions about life.